I came home earlier than planned on a Wednesday night, dragging my suitcase up the front steps, expecting to drop my bag and finally enjoy a quiet evening in my own space. Instead, I stepped into a nightmare I will never forget. The door was unlocked, something I never allowed. The instant I pushed it open, the sound of heavy boots drawers slamming and the unmistakable crack of wood splintering echoed down the hallway. My stomach twisted because those weren't the sounds of family visiting. They were the sounds of a robbery. But when I rounded the corner into the living room, my world shattered. Standing in the center of the chaos was Thomas, my stepfather, his face red with rage, his fists already clenched. Behind him, Victoria, my younger sister, was kneeling by the safe I had hidden in the corner of my office. Wads of cash, my life savings of $90,000, were spilling into a duffel bag like loose paper money. I had worked double shifts and sleepless nights to build. Her husband and a couple of his friends were hauling my furniture out piece by piece as if they owned it. I froze the air, leaving my lungs in one sharp gasp. This was not a robbery by strangers. This was a betrayal by blood. Before I could even open my mouth, Thomas's hand struck my face so hard my vision blurred white. My suitcase fell, the thud drowned out by the ringing in my ears. He grabbed me by the shoulders, slammed me against the wall, and hissed into my face with breath reeking of beer. "This house belongs to family, not to you. You don't get to shut us out while you hoard money like a selfish brat." The words burned deeper than the slap. Pain shot through my skull as he drove his fist into my stomach, folding me in half. I gasped for air, the taste of iron flooding my mouth. On the other side of the room, Victoria glanced up at me, not with guilt, not with shame, but with a smirk. She actually laughed, her manicured hands shoving more of my money into the bag as if this were some kind of game. "Don't look at me like that," she mocked. "You always thought you were better than us. Consider this family payback." Her voice cut through me sharper than Thomas's blows. I tried to scream, but Thomas's hand clamped around my throat, pinning me against the wall so hard I felt the plaster crack behind me. My feet scraped against the hardwood floor, searching for ground I couldn't find. My pulse hammered in my temples. I thought I was going to die right there, watching my sister steal the future I had bled for. Then it happened, the sound that would change everything. A thunderous knock rattled the front door. 3 sharp pounds followed by a voice commanding Portland Police Department, "Open up." I should have known that night was only the explosion of something that had been simmering for years. To anyone looking in from the outside, my family seemed like the picture of survival my mother Linda remarried after my father's sudden death when I was 13 and my younger sister Victoria blossomed into the golden child of the new blended household. But for me, that remarriage was the beginning of a long, slow erosion of every sense of safety I had left. Thomas, the man my mother called her second chance at love, was nothing like the father I had lost. My father had been gentle, hard-working, and endlessly supportive. Thomas was a man who lived off appearances, loud, controlling, and quick to anger. He demanded obedience disguised cruelty as discipline and used words like ungrateful and selfish as if they were my name. When I was still in high school, he began telling me that my presence was temporary, that I would fly away and should not expect the house or any inheritance. Victoria, however, was the princess he showered with praise. She was given a car at 16 money for clothes and excuses whenever she failed her classes. If I protested, my mother's eyes would harden and she would repeat Thomas's mantra, "Family helps family, Rachel. Don't make trouble." The phrase became a weapon used against me any time I wanted fairness. By the time I turned 18, I knew I could not rely on them for anything. I worked 2 part-time jobs balancing fast food shifts with tutoring younger kids to save money for college. When I finally earned a scholarship and left for university, I thought maybe distance would loosen the chains of their control. I studied interior design, pouring myself into a dream of building something stable, something of my own. Every exam I passed, every internship I landed, every paycheck I saved felt like a step away from the toxic grip of that house. Victoria, meanwhile, drifted. She quit community college after one semester bouncing between short-lived jobs. Thomas always defended her, saying she just hadn't found her path yet while he sneered at my determination as arrogant to 90,000. That money was not for vacations or luxuries. It was the foundation of the design studio I dreamed of, opening a way out of contract work and into a future where my name would finally stand for something. Still, the family shadow followed me. Victoria would call whining about overdue rent or credit card debt, and my mother would pressure me to help your sister just this once. I lent Victoria small amounts in the beginning, but they were never repaid. Every dollar vanished into new clothes, bar tabs, or trips she posted on Instagram. When I confronted her, she rolled her eyes and told me I should be grateful I even had money to give. Thomas added his voice, accusing me of hoarding like some miser while family struggled. The last Christmas we spent together, Thomas cornered me in the kitchen after dinner. He leaned close, his voice low enough to keep my mother and sister from hearing, though I knew they probably approved. "You think this house, your money, your independence means anything. You're still that scared little girl living under my roof. Don't forget who the real family is. Don't forget where your loyalty belongs." His breath stank of whiskey, and his smirk made my stomach knot. I laughed it off at the time, telling myself he was drunk. But the truth is, those words carried the intent of someone who believed entitlement was law. Looking back, I can see how the pieces were aligning even then. The constant requests for money, the manipulation, the gaslighting that made me question whether my refusal to give was cruelty instead of protection, and always the subtle threat that if I did not comply, I would be cast out, labeled the selfish one. I didn't know it then, but my careful savings, my independence, and my refusal to surrender were becoming the greatest insult to them. They saw my success not as pride for the family, but as a resource they were owed. That was the storm waiting in silence. That was the tinder ready for a spark, and the night I came home early, I stumbled straight into the fire they had prepared for me. The knock at the door boomed through the house, but Thomas didn't loosen his grip. His fingers dug harder into my throat as if the sound itself provoked him. My vision tunneled black spots crowding the edges, and the only thing that kept me conscious was the sheer rage boiling in my chest. He leaned in close, his spit hitting my cheek as he growled, "Don't you dare open your mouth. You'll tell them nothing. This is family business." His other fist slammed into the wall beside my head, leaving a crater in the plaster, the drywall snowing down onto my shoulder. Behind him, Victoria scrambled, shoving the duffel bag under the desk, whispering frantic instructions to her husband. They moved like a crew who had rehearsed this 100 times. Hide the money, block the view, act innocent. I could see it so clearly now. This wasn't random. This was planned, deliberate, and I had walked straight into it like a lamb to slaughter. The police knocked again, louder this time, the command sharper. "Police, we need you to open the door." I tried to draw air into my lungs, tried to croak out a sound, but Thomas's grip pressed harder. My legs buckled, knees hitting the hardwood. For a second, I thought he would rather choke me to death than risk me speaking. My mother's voice floated from the kitchen doorway, cold and steady. "Thomas, stop. They'll hear. Let me handle it." He finally released me, shoving me down so hard my head smacked the floor. I gasped, clawing at air, coughing so violently, tears spilled down my cheeks. My throat burned raw, and every inhale rattled like broken glass. I looked up at my mother, expecting even the smallest flicker of concern, but she didn't rush to me, didn't bend to help. Instead, she crouched down just enough so only I could hear and whispered, "You brought this on yourself. If you'd shared like a real daughter, none of this would have happened." My body shook not from weakness, but from the cold betrayal those words carried. She turned, then smoothing her dress, and went to the front door. When she opened it, her voice was syrupy sweet. "Officers, what a surprise! Everything is fine here. Just a family disagreement." I watched in horror as the officers hesitated. One of them, a tall man with sharp eyes, tried to peer inside, but Victoria's husband had already shifted furniture to block the view of the mess. My sister appeared in the doorway too, her face arranged into fake tears, her voice trembling with practiced innocence. "My sister just came home upset. She's exaggerating. Please, we'll calm her down." It was a theater, and they had their roles memorized. For a heartbeat, I thought the officers might actually leave. My pulse thudded with panic. If they walked away, I was finished. I would lose my money, my house, maybe even my life if Thomas's temper snapped again. Then something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the sting of my mother's words. Maybe it was the sight of Victoria guarding that stolen bag, but I felt a surge of clarity. My voice rasped from the floor, hoarse and broken, but loud enough to cut through the lies. "Help me! They're stealing my money!" He hit me. The officers froze. One of them stepped forward, pushing the door wider, and the sharp smell of beer and plaster dust wafted into the night air. Thomas lunged toward me, fury blazing in his eyes, but the tall officer barked, "Stay where you are!" His hand went to his holster. For the first time, Thomas hesitated. In that crack of hesitation, I saw something I had never allowed myself to believe before. He wasn't untouchable. The man who had terrorized me for years wasn't immortal. He was just flesh and rage, and the law was bigger than him. Victoria screamed, "She's lying! She's crazy," clutching the duffel tighter as if her grip could erase the truth spilling into the room. My mother backed her up instantly, her voice dripping venom. "Rachel is unstable. The backup arrived within minutes, red and blue lights flashing through my shattered windows. Neighbors gathered at the edge of their lawns, whispering, some holding their phones up to film. For years, my family's cruelty had been hidden behind closed doors, but now it was lit up like a stage for the entire block. Shame flooded my mother's face, not because of what they had done, but because people were watching. Thomas, however, puffed out his chest, still believing his intimidation could rewrite reality. "Officers," he barked, his voice thick with liquor. "This is my house, my family. You have no right to step inside without a warrant." The tall officer, whose badge read Rivera, squared his shoulders. "Sir, we heard a call for help. We have probable cause." His eyes flicked toward me where I sat slumped against the wall, bruises blooming across my neck and cheek. He saw the swelling, the tear tracks the way I cradled my ribs. Evidence that spoke louder than any excuse. When Rivera ordered Thomas to step back, Thomas lunged instead. His arm shot out, trying to shove the officer aside. The next moments blurred. Rivera's partner tackled him, pinning him face down on the floor. Thomas roared like an animal caught in a trap, his fists thrashing, but the clink of handcuffs ended it. My stepfather, the man who had terrorized me with his authority, was dragged up like a common criminal, his wrists bound tight. Victoria's scream pierced the air. She clutched the duffel of cash to her chest, shaking her head violently. "This is ours. She owes us. You don't understand. We're family." She turned those frantic eyes on me as though pleading would erase years of cruelty. "Rachel, tell them. Tell them you'll share. Please don't ruin us." The sheer audacity nearly made me laugh. Even with police standing in my destroyed home, she still thought manipulation would work. My throat burned, my voice a ragged whisper, but I forced each word like a blade. "That money is mine. You stole it. You all did." Rivera approached Victoria, slowly holding out his hand. "Ma'am, you need to put the bag down." But she clung tighter, her nails digging into the canvas. "No, she doesn't deserve it. She never helped us, never cared. I earned this by being the good daughter." Her hysteria only confirmed what I had known. Deep down, this was never about family. It was greed, plain and corrosive. The officers wrestled the bag from her bills, fluttering across the floor like fallen leaves. Neighbors gasped outside as they saw the money spill the truth no longer hidden. My mother tried to gather it, her hands trembling as she stuffed bills back into the bag, but Rivera's voice cracked like a whip. "Ma'am, step away, now." Linda's mask shattered then. She turned on me with venom dripping from her every word. "You ungrateful snake! How dare you bring police into this house? How dare you humiliate your own mother?" The words hit me harder than Thomas's fists. Not because they surprised me, but because they confirmed the truth I had resisted for years. My mother would never protect me. She had chosen them always, them over me. Something inside me hardened. For years I had been silent, bending under the weight of their expectations, their lies, their violence. But as I sat there bruised and trembling with rage, I felt a steel resolve surge through me. They would not break me this time. Not in front of the law, not in front of the world watching from the sidewalk. "I am not your property," I rasped, forcing my voice louder, firmer. "I am not your scapegoat, and tonight everyone sees you for what you are." The neighbors' murmurs rose phones, recording every second. Victoria sobbed, Thomas cursed from where he was restrained, and my mother's face drained of color. Their control, once absolute, was crumbling before my eyes. The officers guided me gently outside, shielding me from their glares. The cool night air seared my lungs, but it felt like freedom. As the ambulance lights flickered, I caught my reflection in the window of the police cruiser, bruised, battered, but still standing. That night wasn't just the climax of years of abuse. It was the breaking point where silence ended and truth broke through. The betrayal that had haunted me since childhood was no longer a secret. It was evidence, it was law, it was undeniable. And as they loaded me into the ambulance, I vowed through the pain that this would not be the end of my story. It would be the beginning of their reckoning. At the hospital, I lay under the harsh fluorescent lights while a nurse cleaned the blood from my split lip. My ribs ached with every shallow breath, and the bruises around my throat throbbed in angry purple. The physical pain was nothing compared to the storm inside me. I had thought calling the police would finally end their reign of terror, but within hours, Thomas posted bail. Victoria and my mother walked free, no charges yet filed because they insisted it was a misunderstanding, a family squabble. I wanted to collapse into despair, but Rivera, the officer who had first stepped into my house, came to see me. He leaned against the doorway of my hospital room, arms crossed. "Rachel," he said, voice steady, "do you have security cameras installed in your house?" My heart skipped. Months earlier, after a break-in down the street, I had installed discreet cameras, 2 inside, 1 outside. I had almost forgotten about them in the chaos. Rivera's eyes sharpened at my hesitation. If they're still active, that footage could blow their lies apart. The next morning, I returned with him to the house. My home looked like a battlefield, broken drawers and shattered plaster marking the violence that had unfolded. Rivera helped me retrieve the hard drive hidden in the basement. With shaking hands, I plugged it into his laptop. What appeared on the screen was larceny. My mother was named an accessory for obstruction. The house that had been their fortress of manipulation was now Exhibit A in a case that shook them to their core. But the twist cut deeper than just the law. When news outlets caught wind of the story, they ran it under headlines like "Local Woman Brutally Attacked by Stepfather," while sister steals $90,000 savings. My neighbors who had once pitied me quietly now rallied around me. Messages poured in from strangers who had lived through similar betrayals, their voices echoing my own private pain. For the first time, I wasn't alone. My family's narrative of me as the selfish, ungrateful daughter collapsed under the weight of public truth. Still, the betrayal gnawed at me. Sitting across from my attorney Harris, I asked the question that haunted me. How could my own mother do this? How could she watch him hit me and still protect them? Harris leaned forward, his gaze steady. Because some people mistake control for love, but the law doesn't, and neither should you. That was the twist that anchored itself in my chest. They had not only tried to steal my money and my home, they had tried to erase my boundaries, my identity, my right to exist as separate from them. And now, because of a few blinking red lights on my ceiling, their entire scheme was exposed. In court weeks later, I sat trembling as the footage played for the jury. Gasps rippled through the room when Thomas's hand connected with my face on screen, when Victoria sneered about payback, when Linda dismissed my pleas. I could barely look at them shackled at the defense table, but I forced myself to. I needed to see their powerlessness, to remind myself that monsters fall when truth shines bright enough. The twist wasn't just that I had survived their assault. It was that in trying to break me, they had built the very case that destroyed them. Their arrogance blinded them to the fact that every smirk, every blow, every whispered cruelty was being recorded. They thought they were untouchable. Now they were nothing more than defendants waiting for sentencing. And for the first time in years, I could breathe without fear. Because I finally understood the family I had spent so long trying to win over was never mine. My family was the people who believed me, who fought beside me, who helped me reclaim the life they tried to steal. The twist was not just their downfall, it was my awakening. The sentencing hearing was the day the balance finally tipped. I sat in the front row of the courtroom, my attorney Harris steady at my side, the video evidence already seared into the minds of every juror. Thomas entered in shackles, his once booming arrogance reduced to mutters. Victoria followed pale and trembling, her manicured nails chewed down to stubs. My mother Linda walked behind them, her eyes darting anywhere but toward me. The woman who had given me life couldn't even look at me now. The prosecutor laid it out in stark terms. assault with intent to cause bodily harm, conspiracy to commit theft, obstruction of justice. Each count was backed by footage, by medical records, by police testimony. The defense tried to spin tales of misunderstanding and family conflict, but every excuse crumbled under the weight of evidence. When it came time for victim impact statements, I stood on shaking legs, clutching the paper I had written in the stillness of my apartment. My throat burned, but my voice carried through the hushed chamber. For years, I was told family means loyalty, but loyalty without love is just chains. My stepfather used fists instead of words. My sister used deceit instead of honesty, and my own mother stood by and called my pain a drama. They didn't just try to steal my money, they tried to steal my future, my safety, and my voice. But tonight, my voice is the one thing they cannot take. I saw a juror wipe her eyes. I saw Thomas's jaw tighten. I saw Victoria break into sobs, finally realizing that crocodile tears wouldn't undo the damage. And I saw my mother close her eyes as though shutting me out could erase the truth. The judge's gavel fell heavy with finality. Thomas received 12 years in state prison with no chance of parole before 8. Victoria was sentenced to 5 years 3, of which would be served the rest on probation with restitution owed. Linda was ordered to pay fines and serve 2 years of supervised probation for obstruction. Justice wasn't perfect, but it was tangible. For once, the scales didn't tilt in their favor. But the revenge didn't end in court. My insurance company covered the damages, reimbursing me for the destroyed kitchen and stolen savings. With Harris's help, I filed a civil suit against all 3, ensuring any inheritance or assets they tried to cling to would be garnished to repay what they had taken. The house that had once been my nightmare was rebuilt with their money. The same walls where Thomas had raised his fists now gleamed with fresh paint and steel fixtures that felt like armor. The story spread beyond the courtroom. Local news turned into national coverage. Headlines painted me as the woman who fought back against her toxic family and won. At first, the attention felt suffocating, but then the letters started coming, handwritten notes from women across the country who had endured their own silent wars at the dinner table, who had lived under fists and gaslighting, who thought no one would ever believe them. "Your story saved me," one letter said. Another wrote, "I'm leaving tonight because you proved it's possible." That was the sweetest consequence of all my family's betrayal, became my weapon. My scars became a map for others. I used the settlement money not just to repair my home, but to found the Boundary Project, a nonprofit offering legal aid and safe me, one built not on their approval, but on my own strength. They had stolen $90,000, but I had built something priceless, a future that was finally irrevocably mine. The first morning after the trial, I woke up to sunlight spilling across my bedroom floor, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel dread clawing at my chest. My house rebuilt, secured, and mine again was silent except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator. No yelling, no threats, no whispered poison slipping under my door. Just peace. I walked barefoot into the kitchen, my hand brushing across the new counters, and I let myself smile. This wasn't just wood and stone. It was proof I had survived. The months that followed were a blur of rebuilding not just my home, but myself. Therapy sessions helped me untangle years of gaslighting, reminding me that the bruises on my body had always matched the bruises on my soul. Harris stayed in touch, guiding me through the civil case that ensured restitution would keep flowing in. Officer Rivera checked in once, telling me my courage had inspired his department to start training more actively on family-based financial abuse. Even the judge sent me a letter, something rare, saying my testimony had moved her and might change how she handled similar cases. The Boundary Project grew faster than I could have imagined. What started as a local support circle in a borrowed church basement turned into a nonprofit with volunteers, a small legal team, and even donated apartments where victims could stay when they had nowhere else to go. Every story I heard mothers cast aside, brothers stealing inheritances, daughters gaslit into silence was another echo of my own. Each time I looked into the eyes of someone who thought no one would believe them, I could say with certainty, "I believe you, and we will fight together." Still, healing wasn't linear. Some nights I woke sweating, Thomas's roar echoing in my dreams, my mother's cold whisper replaying in my ear. But each morning I fought back with routine, making coffee writing grants for the nonprofit, sketching new designs for clients who sought me out precisely because they admired my resilience. Slowly, the nightmares loosened their grip. I also built boundaries sharp and non-negotiable. When distant relatives reached out after seeing my story on TV, some offering sympathy, others sniffing around for money, I drew a line. No became my favorite word. Not cruel, not cold, just final. It was the word that saved me. The greatest growth, though, came quietly. One afternoon in spring, I planted a small garden in my backyard. As I knelt in the dirt, pressing seeds into the soil, I thought about how my family had tried to strip me of everything. And yet, here I was, hands steady, knees dirty, coaxing life from the earth. Growth was mine to claim. Years later, when people asked what happened to my family, I answered simply, they faced the consequences of their choices. I didn't dwell on their names, their sentences, or their bitterness. They were chapters closed. What mattered was the life I wrote afterward. I traveled to conferences, spoke at shelters, designed kitchens that were safe havens instead of battlegrounds. My scars never disappeared, but they became part of a story that belonged to me, not them. And sometimes late at night, I would stand in my living room, the same spot where Thomas's fist once connected with my face, and I would whisper aloud, I am still here. Not broken, not owned, not silent, just me. To anyone watching, I say this. Family is not defined by blood, but by love, respect, and safety. If those are absent, you have the right to walk away. You have the right to fight back. And you have the right to rebuild a life that is yours fiercely and unapologetically. So here I am, Rachel Carter, survivor, founder, designer, woman who stood against betrayal and turned it into fire. And I will never again let anyone dim the light I fought so hard to keep. Now tell me, where are you watching from tonight? Share your story, your city, your journey. And if mine gave you even a spark of courage, subscribe and stay. Because this community we are building together is proof that even from the deepest betrayal we can rise, always. It's been 3 years since that night, and sometimes I still catch myself pausing at the sound of a car door slamming outside or a heavy knock echoing through the hallway. Trauma leaves fingerprints invisible but undeniable. Yet those moments no longer control me. They remind me of what I overcame. They remind me that survival is not weakness, it is power. My mother hasn't spoken to me since probation ended. Rumor has it she moved states to live with one of her cousins. I used to wonder if she regretted her choices, if somewhere deep down she felt even a twinge of remorse for turning her back on her own daughter. Now I realize it doesn't matter. Her silence is just another kind of answer. I don't need it. Victoria sent one letter from prison written in a rushed scrawl on yellow paper. You ruined my life, she wrote. You should have helped instead of punishing us. I'll never forgive you. I tore the letter in half, not because it hurt, but because it was proof that some people never change. I will not carry her bitterness anymore. Thomas remains behind bars. I check the state inmate database once in a while, not out of fear, but to confirm the reality he is there, and I am here, free. Knowing that brings a calm I never thought I would feel. The Boundary Project has grown into a national network. We now partner with legal clinics across 6 states, offering free consultations for people entangled in the kind of financial and emotional traps I once thought I'd never escape. When I stand at a podium in front of survivors, I often see faces streaked with tears, eyes, colleagues, and volunteers from the nonprofit to my backyard. We light candles, share stories, laugh until our voices rise into the night sky. These people are my family now, the kind built by choice, by kindness, by trust. Blood did not bind me, but love did. Looking back, I see how every betrayal sharpened me. Every bruise became a testament to my resilience. Every loss carved space for new beginnings. And every act of cruelty they inflicted only fueled the fire that now lights my path forward. To anyone listening, I say this with all the strength I've earned. Never let toxic loyalty chain you to pain. Family is not the ones who break you, but the ones who stand beside you as you heal. Walk away if you must, speak out when you can, and know that your voice matters more than their silence. Because I am living proof what was meant to destroy me became the very thing that set me free. So as I close this chapter, I turn the page with no fear. My story is not just one of betrayal, but of boundaries, justice, and rebirth. And if you're sitting there wondering if you can find the same strength, I promise you can. Tell me, where are you watching from tonight? Share your story in the comments. Like and subscribe if my journey resonated with you. Together, we will keep building this community of survivors, of fighters, of people who refuse to be silenced. Because this is not the end, it is only the beginning. Always. There's a certain stillness that comes when you've walked through fire and stepped out the other side. It's not the absence of pain, but the presence of perspective. I no longer measure my life by what my family did to me, but by what I've built in spite of them. My story began in betrayal, but it does not end there. It ends in resilience, in community, in hope. I often think back to that night, the flashing lights, the neighbors whispering the sound of my own ragged voice, pleading for help. That version of me thought she was about to lose everything, and in a way, she did. She lost the illusion that blood guarantees loyalty. She lost the fantasy that her mother's approval would ever come. She lost the desperate hope that her sister might stand beside her. But in losing those illusions, she gained the truth. And truth is unbreakable. When I speak at shelters now, I sometimes share a single line that silences every room. The people who should have loved me tried to bury me. Instead, they planted me. Survivors nod because they understand. Out of soil soaked with betrayal, new roots can still grow. I live differently now. My mornings begin with gratitude lists, simple things like hot coffee, clean sheets, the quiet hum of my own safe home. I tend my garden where lilies bloom every spring, their petals stretching wide, as if they too know what it means to rise again. I travel when I want work, when I choose, and pour my energy into the Boundary Project. Each new survivor who finds us is a reminder that my scars were not in vain. Do I ever wish my story had been different, that I had grown up in a family of unconditional love? Of course. But wishing doesn't change reality. What does change reality is refusing to let the past dictate the future. I will not let their cruelty echo endlessly in my life. I choose every day to write new chapters filled with dignity, safety, and strength. And I want you to choose the same. If you've ever felt silenced, unseen, or betrayed by the very people who should have protected you, hear me. You are not defined by their actions. You are defined by your resilience. You can draw boundaries. You can seek justice. You can heal. To the viewers who followed this journey, thank you. Your support, your comments, your stories shared back to me. This is the family I always longed for. A chosen family. A community bound not by obligation, but by solidarity. Together we are rewriting what family means. So here is my invitation. Tell me where you're watching from tonight. Share your city, your story, your own steps toward healing. Let this channel be more than just a place for stories. It can be a sanctuary for voices once silenced. If my journey resonated with you like this video, subscribe and stay with us. Because every view, every share, every comment helps another survivor find the courage to speak. My name is Rachel Carter. I was betrayed, beaten, and nearly broken by the people who should have loved me most. But I refused to stay silent. I fought back. I found justice. And I rebuilt a life that is finally wholly, beautifully mine. And if I can do it, so can you. This is not just my story. It's ours. And together we rise. Always. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it struck a chord with you, don't just walk away in silence. Be part of the conversation. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I love seeing our community come alive, city by city, country by country, one voice after another. If you've ever lived through something like this, or you know someone who has your words, could be the light someone else needs tonight. Sharing your story matters. And if you're not ready to share, that's okay too. Just know you're not alone here. Please take a moment to hit the like button. It helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Every week we bring you real stories of betrayal, justice, and survival that remind us how strong the human spirit really is. And one more thing, turn on notifications so you never miss a story. These videos are more than content, they're lifelines. Together we are building something bigger than any betrayal, a family of choice, a community of courage. So stay with us, like, subscribe, and share your voice below. Because together we rise, always.